trapped on this plane of existence. Flat this game of risk, checkerboard, convicted sector. You collect the nectar. Earth's broke down, man. Someone call the record. Flat. I can tell you about some things that gonna blow your mind. Everything that you've been taught throughout your life's a lie. Indoctrinated to regret your perception just to believe a school lesson so you can pass to the next one.
All right, we are live. Infinite Plane Radio Evening Deprogram for 11/22/2024. I want to start off by going through the points of interest for the evening. And by the way, we're on like 5 different YouTube channels, but all of the comments, 5 different YouTube channels. Attempting to coalesce all IPS think tank participants from the past. Points of interest for 11/22, U.S. Military PSYOPs Department was formed in 1952. The JFK Mandela Effect. I actually have a voicemail about that one. AutoHoaxCon, Revelation of the Fake, free PDF I just put out there. In fact, I'll put a link in the chat. If you're in chat right now, you can get this free ebook. Revelation of the Fake. It's my final word, really, on this whole concept of predictive programming. Not that we're done talking about it, but we've made the case. And if we have to weigh the metascript versus synchromysticism, this is my argument in favor of a better model and why we should adopt it. Revelation of the Fake. I see 3 of you have already downloaded it. And it's just a treatise on predictive programming, the fact that it exists, and what it means, what the implications are, and demystifying it. It's very important. I think it's a step forward. It's a leap forward. We're not in Trutherville anymore. Does Charlie Sheen even exist? Russia hypersonic warning to the West. Prophet says Biden is a body double. A review of Dr. Sleep. So I watched Dr. Sleep. I didn't have a lot of time to talk about it yesterday. And today I do, because it's a follow-up to The Shining, and it's Stephen King, the Kubrick connections there, and it has this other element that wasn't present in the original or in the first one. It's this thing called steam, which is basically adrenochrome, and it's about adrenochrome vampires, more or less. Real sick stuff. All right, so we have about 30-some people here. We can go ahead and start. Joined by Messianic Charlatan, John Lebsack, American Fathers, Gematria 101, Ollie Goering, Lean Dion, King Ravana, bomb shelters built under middle schools, 1958. Yeah, there are some bomb shelters downtown. In fact, there's this theater. It's all subterranean. We have this mall that nobody goes to because it's like it's beneath downtown. They have the DMV there, I think. But there's a lot of infrastructure built on the premise that we would need to go into a Fallout shelter. And if you haven't watched Fallout and Oppenheimer, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle as it's unfolding. And Christopher Nolan is associated with Westworld, Fallout, which, again, these things all reiterate the same themes. And this is what we've been talking about. The metascripters, the writers, the ones who are executing the role of performing or fabricating history on the world stage. And it is mostly performance. They have to act out these events that they have predetermined would happen. Okay, so let's start with this. This is from Invisidon. This is this theory that Corey Feldman is in fact Charlie Sheen with some kind of a mask, an attachment. And if you look, a lot of people have noticed it kind of matches. D-Man says, even sounds like him. Both sick SOBs. Feldman and Sheen are the same person, says Naps and Sack. Not surprising, but my mind is blown. Uncanny. I've never seen how much they resembled one another. There's plenty more here. A lot of people tend to agree with this. Actually, it was Messianic Charlatan who drew my attention to this. I always thought it was I think I heard it from one other person, and I can see it, but not really. See, my take on this person is this person, is that if it's close, it's very easy. for your imagination to make that leap. It's the same process by which you read comics and you see it as a continuous series of actions when it's really just separate, disparate images, but your imagination can fill in the blanks. And if it's close, it's easy to convince yourself. So I would need to compare it to videos and otherwise, although a lot of people here seem to think it's true. If true, then one of them doesn't exist. Either Feldman is being Sheen or Sheen is being Feldman. I kind of don't think so. Just interested in your thoughts. Okay, Dr. Sleep, 2019 American supernatural film, an adaptation of the Stephen King novel and sequel to Kubrick's The Shining from 1980. So it's about Danny all grown up. It ends up in the Overlook Hotel. It's really about a bunch of adrenochrome vampires, more or less. Main character, her name is Abra, reference to abracadabra, which has great significance. In fact, Crowley said that that is the word of the new aeon. But it's about this young telepath. She's psychic. And one of the things that made me look at this movie is that in the book version, she predicts or has a vision of 9/11. Now, this is highly significant that you would have a child foresee 9/11 because this would connect this theme of The Shining having predictive programming for 9/11. And there's a great article called Stanley Kubrick's Faked Death and the 9/11 Hoax by Chartword. And it goes into the symbolism of The Shining and how the twins and the Twin Towers correlate. There's a really good example, in fact, when they're standing beside the phone booth, which represents the Bell telephone tower, and Danny's throwing darts. He drives by on his tricycle, and they're both on the ground, gutted, and there's a fireman's axe and an overturned chair. Looks suspiciously like Ground Zero. And these are just a few examples, but the big one is this. At Ground Zero, you do in fact have the specifically designed 2001 monolith. It's the hotel, the Millennium Hilton. So right there overlooking Ground Zero is this big Stanley Kubrick monolith. And it turns out that the scene in 2001 Space Odyssey, which is from 1968, same year the tower's construction began, you have the uncovered monolith on the moon with a big, it looks like just a big pit, but it's like a construction site, but it looks exactly like Ground Zero. The hotel monolith, where the monolith is, it even has the pit with the ramp going down. Just, again, this is predictive programming, and this is in all of Kubrick's work, going back to Dr. Strangelove even, which premiered on 11/22/1963. So 61 years ago, Dr. Strangelove premieres. So I just wanted to bring this up. A couple of other things regarding the Kubrick assassination. Again, Oswald didn't shoot Kennedy. Kubrick did. So Marilyn Manson released his album today, One Assassination Under God. And in it, he walks around with an umbrella. And the song is about sacrifice and entertainment. And I get the idea he and others of his ilk, I'm talking about very high profile actors and musicians who are featured prominently in PSYOP's Eyes shortly after the video is about to come out, and they had to delay it because the video has this theme of JFK Jr. being the third Jesus, with JFK being the second. I mean, really bizarre stuff, but ironically, it's the stuff that QAnon believes. Like, QAnon actually believes what was this concept Marilyn Manson put into a music video, a morbid music video. But anyway, in the video, he's carrying an umbrella, which is a allusion to the Umbrella Man. So the Umbrella Man was this individual at the scene of the assassination. He was identified later. The figure appears in several films and photographs of the assassination of United States President John F. Kennedy, one of the closest bystanders when the president was shot. So this raised suspicion among investigators due to his maneuvering of an umbrella. I was looking at Twitter today, X, and all kinds of theories have popped up about this. Some people think the driver did it. One theory that really stood out to me is that Jackie Kennedy shot him. And then we just came across this article in Vanity Fair. It just came out that 2 months before the assassination, he and Jackie were recreating, or rather filming, a home movie where he gets killed. And he's dead on the floor, covered in ketchup. And the Secret Service come in, acting as though they heard shots. So this is something that just came out. We haven't seen the full video, but we have seen some stills. And one of the shots is remarked on by the person who wrote the piece in Vanity Fair, just about how eerie it is that it seems to perfectly match Zapruder's angle on the Lincoln. And maybe we should revisit it sometime here soon, perhaps, the connections between the Lincoln and the JFK assassination. Very interesting stuff. Lincoln shot in the Ford Theater. Of course, Kennedy shot in a Lincoln? So there's a lot of interesting back and forth. A lot of these things are maybe even just urban myth, but much of it is undeniable. The indication here, I'm bringing this up, is that this scripting of our news and our worldview isn't new. I was talking to someone on Twitter, and they assumed that they started faking things in 2012 with that certain school shooting. It's like, no, that's when you noticed. Eccentric View says new episodes of Silo are out. I'll have to check that out. I actually meant to start watching it. Joined by World Stage. And World Stage has been posting some shorts, which I appreciate very much. Suzette Ann, thank you for joining. Tominoid. Okay. So, no, that story, World Stage, about JFK faking his own assassination, and this is from the Vanity Fair, it's new information. It's like, here it is, 4 days ago. Why JFK staged his own murder. Unbelievable. Untold tale, never before seen photos of this 1963 home movie directed by Jacqueline Kennedy. So this is, again, exactly 2 months before the assassination. One of the individuals from the Secret Service that was involved in this little movie was the head of the Secret Service at the Dealey Plaza assassination site. But it's bizarre at a minimum. And there's really no explanation outside of what I think is the case, which is they knew how this was going to end. They knew the PSYOP was coming, and they probably thought it was fun. They're having fun with it. And perhaps, maybe they were even, at this point, trying to figure out if there's anybody in their Secret Service they could maybe get in on the hoax. I mean, maybe they're all in on it, not sure. But it's an important question, as far as these events, who is in the know? When Trump had his ear fake shot, it's safe to say everybody in the Secret Service would have known. The AP photographer who supplied the fake photography would have known. You could pretty much assume anybody behind him were in on it. My audio's cutting out. Okay, thanks for letting me know. It should be fine now. Buffering. Yeah, a lot of times we talk about stuff and it just starts buffering. I take note of what we're talking about when the buffering starts. Let me play this voicemail. I'm pretty sure it's about JFK.
Thought you'd have me on live, talk about the Mandela effect. I want you to explain this to me, because there are things that have happened to me. And I studied the JFK assassination. There were 4 people in that car.
Yeah, this is a common claim by the Mandela affected, that there were 4 people in the car. And there are reasons to explain the misconception, but let's continue.
There's 6. So I just want to know how did they make me, by some kind of thought thing or whatever, remember something different? Because I remember that distinctively. And that's only one case. So how messed up am I? How bad did they get me? I'd love to talk to you about this.
Well, they mandoozled you. That's how bad they got you. And here's what I'll add to it. When you say, I remember clearly that there were 4 people in the car when JFK was shot, when you say, quote, I remember, you weren't there at Dealey Plaza. It wasn't on TV when it happened. It took 12 years for it to surface on Geraldo Rivera. So it wasn't even something that you technically remembered. And then there's a question of how did you arrive at the false memory? It's called the misinformation effect. And the reason why this happens is recent information can affect your past memories. So here we go. This is for a lot of people. This is on Reddit. Out of all the Mandela effects, the biggest one for me is the assassination of JFK. I remember the 4th-seat Lincoln. I remember not getting the images out of my head. I was traumatized by what I was seeing. Like, okay, you didn't see it. So they're talking about it as though they witnessed this thing live on TV. Like it was a broadcast like we see things today. But no, that's just not the case. But he said he remembers 4. Now, there are explanations. One of them is this. A JFK museum has a mock-up with a duplicate Lincoln, but it only has 4. So that could be an explanation. Does anybody else here, quote, remember 4? A lot of people are saying that. Something else, too, is they don't take into account how weak or flimsy these memories are. And when you're recalling something that you don't have a firm memory of, I think it's malleable. But you really got to test the memory. You know, like, for example, Timmy. Everybody knows Timmy fell down the well. Well, nobody knows how he was extracted. There's nobody who can tell me, even though everybody knows he fell down the well, nobody can explain to me how they got him out. Nuts out for Peanut, formerly Laser, says there were 4 people. Right. Well, it's a misconception, is what I'll say. And there is no such thing as Mandela effects. But what there are misremembrances. Common misconception. Misremembered song lyrics. There are no Mandela effects. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, this is Nick Finger.
Hey, what's up, Nick Finger?
Hey, I keep on missing you. I've been wanting to call in the last couple of weeks. Since the last time you were talking about Paul Weispaul, the FBI guy.
Oh, yeah.
Tampa,
Yeah.
So, just something about the name, world stage player. I Google searched Wise Paul reference and got something interesting. Cause I took a screenshot of the article that you had up about that dude, and the date was June 23rd, 6/23, and it said for the past week, and so which would have been the 16th through the 23rd. And the Google search, you know how it gives you like the little AI synopsis before it gives you any websites now?
Yeah.
So the first 2 entries, the first one, 1 Corinthians 2:6-16. So it's got the date right there, 6:16. Paul describes the wisdom he speaks of as coming from God and being predetermined before the ages. And then the very second one, 1 Corinthians 3:16 through 23. So it's got the date 6-23 right there. Paul emphasizes the superiority of God's wisdom over human knowledge and the importance of focusing on allegiance to Christ. So I just thought that was kind of fitting that the first two things are the dates that the article mentions, June 16th and June 23rd. Thought I'd throw that at you.
Okay. What's your take on
also,
what's your take on you're in Tampa, and so what's your take on Sergeant Weissapal? Do you think this FBI agent is in fact Timothy McVeigh?
Well, I mean, the pictures look like he is. I'm a bartender. I've been bartending here since forever, and the last place that I worked closed down a couple months ago. But one of my regulars there, he's an FBI agent here in Tampa. So I've been wanting to run into him and ask if he knows this guy.
Interesting. Well,
And,
I'm going to play his voice. I actually have an audio clip of McVeigh and Sergeant Weissapal that I'm going to play back to back.
all right, I'll listen off the line.
Okay, thanks for the call, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. All right, so this is the thing. Here's the significance. Timothy McVeigh is the OBL of white nationalists, kind of like, I guess you could call him like Osama bin Laden. He was executed at the age of 33 on 6/11/01, 90 days before Muhammad Atta, a 33 lead hijacker, crashed into the first of the Twin Towers to get hit. And he attacked the Oklahoma City building. The bombing was a result or retaliation for the Branch Davidians being incinerated by the ATF. So he was radicalized at Waco. And at Waco, you had Dave Koresh, 33. Again, Burning Man, incinerated, claimed to be Christ, all kinds of symbolism here. But there's a pattern here. And, of course, Alex Jones also got his radicalization, his start at Waco. Trump kicks off his campaign at Waco. Waco is a key place in this bigger story. But let me go ahead and play this, and then we'll talk more about it. Because the theory is that McVeigh, who was inspired by the Turner Diaries, published by a man born on 9/11, 1933, the story here is that McVeigh faked his death, or they faked his death. He was always an agent, didn't really die. And that he was then repurposed and took another job within the FBI, and he is FBI agent Paul Weissapal. So let me go ahead and play this clip.
That maybe not everything is true that you've heard about me.
And you get a search warrant, you're looking at somebody's computer.
That maybe not everything is true that you've heard about me.
And you get a search warrant, you're looking at somebody's computer.
All right, well, they look and sound the same. I mean, it's debatable, I guess, but more. This is interesting. On April 19th, and again, the Burning Man theme. On April 19th of 2024, outside the Trump courthouse, Maxwell Azarello set himself on fire. And that was on the anniversary of this, not disconnected. But on April 19th, 1995, McVeigh ignited a truck bomb outside the Alfred Murrah Federal Building, Oklahoma City, killing 168, including children. So the story is he blows up like a government daycare center, 168. And then I find this. This is Agent Paul Weissapal, special agent in charge of the FBI's Tampa field, recovered 168 juveniles in a nationwide operation targeting commercial trafficking of children. So again, in one incarnation, he blows up 168. In another, he rescues 168. Kind of an interesting connection. And if you dig deeper, you find some strange things. Like he was at a prison complex that had 33 acres. He was accessible with some address. You could write him. It was P.O. Box 33. He had been executed by lethal injection. And during his execution, a 33-year-old conductor was playing classical music. I mean, it gets ridiculous when you look at how many times they encoded the number 33 into McVeigh's story. And it ties in, of course, to Dave Koresh and Jesus and all this stuff. And then his connection, because again, he was executed 6/11 at 33. Trump was shot 6/11 in 33 seconds. That number, that code is what I'd call it. 611 has always been like the inversion of the 911 concept. So 911 external threat, 611 domestic. And we consistently see these numbers paired with these various events. But McVeigh, worth looking into. I don't think there's any reason to think he actually died, because obviously these are all scripted events. And the Turner Diaries has been recently surfacing at many events or psyops. The shooters always have it if they're right wing. Turner Diaries by William Luther Pierce, who founded the National Alliance. Now here's something else. This is something from 2020. Here's the cover. You see the man with his open shirt, and then you see the woman with her striped shirt. They're both armed, and you have the Equality Police in the background. The Equality Police. These NWO, New World Order, UN soldiers. Now, in 2020, we had the story of the McCloskeys. The McCloskeys were the couple in St. Louis who posed in their front yard with their weapons because BLM was marching down the street. And if you look at their wardrobe, it is the exact same. The cover of Turner Diaries came to life 42 years later, summer of 2020. They were huge fans and supporters of Kyle Rittenhouse. They actually dressed like this whenever they went to public events. She with her Hamburglar shirt, and then he with his tight polo. But anyway, not a coincidence. It totally fits the story. And the Turner Diaries is considered the Bible of the racist right, according to the FBI. It influenced, as we says here, McVeigh. Now the author, again, is William Luther Pierce. Has a birthday of 9/11/33, kind of interesting. And a couple of the points. This book itself contains predictive programming for a 9/11-like attack on the Capitol. And it even contains, I think, a bomb-laden plane crashing into the Pentagon or something. But this book was the inspiration for McVeigh conducting this attack. It says here, the Anti-Defamation League identified Turner Diaries as probably the most widely read book among far-right extremists. And the story here is that the far right works with the Russians, and they basically nuke everybody. So it's all about nukes, but it's about right-wing extremists getting it. And then today is 11/22. It's the anniversary of Leave the World Behind, which has that suggestion that possibly Kevin Bacon's character in that movie, I think, suggests this, that Leave the World Behind is about a right-wing attack on America, or an attack from within. This is a short clip. Kind of interesting. This is Elon Musk talking to Jordan Peterson. And he's talking about how his AI god is going to emerge from Memphis, Tennessee, and how Memphis was the capital in ancient Egypt, and that perhaps Memphis is where our new god is going to come from.
Just before we started, you said you were up till 4 in the morning?
Yeah,
so,
actually a little more like 5 in the morning, but
okay.
We got the...
He's talking about the XAI data center, or the supercomputer center. Now, one more point. Musk's use of the number 42 is often referencing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's one interpretation of it. And in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's the supercomputer at the center of the universe that gives us the answer to everything, which is 42. And 42, some say it's I guess it's the computer code, ASCII, and the code 42 is the asterisk symbol, which is the wild card for everything. But the supercomputer is what I'm bringing up here. So you have the data center in Memphis, and he compares this Memphis to Egypt and suggests that a new god may emerge from there.
The XAI data center, or supercomputer center, training from beginning installation to start of training in 19 days, which is the fastest that anyone has ever gotten a supercomputer to train.
Now, I know it's a little hard to hear him. So is that the new building off the side? Is that where you work? He says, I see Memphis, the capital of ancient Egypt. Right, you're bringing that up. Perhaps that's where our new god will come from. And then he laughs, and then Jordan says, I wish that was funny. Meaning it's not, and then Musk laughs more. I'll play the rest of it.
Yeah, you're bringing what?
Perhaps that's where our new god will come from.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, I wish that was funny. Yeah, okay, so I want to talk to you about alignment.
I wish that was funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not funny, according to Jordan Peterson, that our new god may come from Memphis. Hell 9000. That's another example. Skynet. We have so many examples of this concept that's been introduced. And AI is heavily mystified. A lot of people are willing to attribute intelligence to what is essentially a glorified search engine. All right, let's see here. My third eye says Lassie fell down the well. Well, Lassie pushed somebody down the well. Flapjack says Geico had 50s TV show spoofs. Lassie, Leave It to Beaver, Speed Racer. Yeah, okay, now that's a good point here. Spoofs. A spoof can contribute to what you would call the misinformation effect, where their real memory is affected and it becomes less accurate because of post-episode information. So whatever they remember about this event is influenced by what comes next. You could call the Mandela effect the misinformation effect. This is how it works. It's memory manipulation, it's gaslighting, it's framing a question in a certain way, it's interrogator bias. I mean, it can be fully understood. There are no Mandela effects. There are misremembrances, and your memories can be interfered with. And here's what's bad about the Mandela effect. The believers in it who ask people, are you Mandela affected, are creating it. They're creating the process through gaslighting. Okay, joined by Diana South, Patricia Steer, Clockwork 113. Oh, thank you very much, Diana South. IPS appreciates your support and participation. Josh Lebsock says Elon of Mars. Yeah, Musk is the Elon of Mars, one of the first dictators to colonize Mars. He's an amalgamation of the Elon, Von Braun, Jack Parsons, Willy Wonka, Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Constantine, Pope Constantine. If you put all them together, you get Elon Musk. And when I say Willy Wonka, this is deliberate. He bought Gene Wilder's house. He started making candy, and it was connected to his boring company that does the underground tunneling. And so if you think about it, Willy Wonka, underground tunnel, candy, and the eccentric aspect of him, his eccentric personality. It's part of this composite they've created. Musk is a Frankenstein as much as Trump is. Good evening, Tim and Vic 131. He says, good evening, thought criminals. Well, they have isolated the thought crime, the mind virus. They've isolated it. So technically, we are asymptomatic mind virus super spreaders. And soon we will be quarantined. Not physically, but they already kind of do, in a sense. We're kind of ostracized on the world stage. American Father says the tunnels are already there too. Yeah, I'm more inclined to think that NASA isn't wasting their money on bad special effects so much as maybe they're just not allotting a lot of money to it and they're putting all their money underground. I don't think they're emphasizing special effects as much as real work, and it's quite possible that deep space is subterranean. And there's been a lot of talk lately about underwater alien activity, and I'm inclined to think that that's probably not true. But deep space, the abyss, James Cameron, I don't know. I get the idea that space is beneath our feet. And the tunneling thing, the boring tunneling thing. And what's kind of interesting, if you look at the boring machine, the boring tunnel, one of them, it's called Alice. Alice, the tunnel boring machine, TBM, has 47 disc cutters and can exert 25 tons of pressure to cut through bedrock and limestone, propelled by 19 pistons. Now, this thing is called Alice, named for its creator or something, but I can't separate it from Alice in Wonderland. And interestingly enough, talking about the number 42, Lewis Carroll might have been the first person to have conceptualized traveling through a vacuum, as in like Alice falling down the tunnel, falling down the hole, and she's just kind of free falling, floating. But Lewis Carroll put this notion forth that if you were to drill a hole through the earth, like from one end to the other, and you were to fall through it, it would take 42 minutes to go through the earth. And so this is Lewis Carroll. So you have the connection with the underworld. And I would say Alice and Mad Hatter is Persephone and Hades. I think it's actually part of an older myth. But again, the idea that you could go through the earth in 42 minutes. And I don't know if that's precisely the number they use anymore. But that was one of the takes. And I'm just saying, he suggested that it would take 42 minutes to fall through the earth, the tunnel, Elon Musk. It's all kind of overlapping. And, there's this thing called the Alice in Wonderland syndrome, where somebody has a distorted sense of space relations and objects are difficult to accurately ascertain their size. It's like Alice in Wonderland. And it's a side effect of a sexually transmitted disease called the Epstein-Barr virus. And this is all very weird because Jeffrey Epstein worked with Donald Barr, the father of A.G. Barr, and Donald Barr wrote this book called Space Relations about teenage sex slaves on island planets. So you can connect that with Epstein pretty easily. And you put them together, Epstein-Barr, there's a virus, and it gives you a symptom called Alice in Wonderland syndrome. And then if you look at all the various ways that Alice in Wonderland is connected with mind control themes, it all kind of succinctly fits together. Currently, there's no known specific cause of the Alice in Wonderland syndrome, but theories point to infections such as the Epstein-Barr virus. Very strange. Okay, let's get back on topic here. Lucid Streams. Interesting that Lewis Carroll, author of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, is a mathematician. Yeah, definitely. And so you got Alice in Wonderland. You have Dorothy in Oz. Dolores in Westworld. Truman in The Truman Show. There's all these different examples of individuals put into a fictional, a like a little Matrix type thing, like Follow the White Rabbit, Neo, the Matrix. It's a reoccurring theme. But I think it's ultimately a metaphor for mind control. I think that's what it comes down to. Wonderland, Oz, Westworld. And I put a chapter in that book, that PDF I just released. There's a chapter in here called Don't Follow the White Rabbit. So let me put the link in there one more time if you haven't had a chance to download it. It's totally free. I think this is information. It's an idea I need to put out there so we can move forward. Tim and Vic says, in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, who was born on a 311, 42 is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. And 42 is consistently displayed in various PSYOP contexts where it relates with Saturn. It's generally Saturn or concepts related to falling, gravity, the black cube. There's a body of symbols and numbers you can group together by usage. Like 33 is commonly associated with ascension, 42 with falling. And this would be consistent with Starman, the man who fell to Earth, Elon Musk's car in space, which had on the dashboard, Don't Panic, a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's amazing how much they've intertwined science fiction and reality. And that's, of course, a feature of our modern paradigm. All right, continuing. Talked about Timothy McVeigh and Special Agent Weissapal. Now, here's something that was put together by World Stage. This is really good. Concurrent programming pertaining to white noise. So there's a lot I could say about white noise. In fact, I knew a lot of people who fell for it. When the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment with the airborne event, the toxic airborne event, when that was reported, a lot of people said, "Are you telling me that the fish aren't all dying?" I'm like, yeah, it's all fake. Those are crisis fish. So let's play this clip here. This is showing all the different news reports that were remarking on how eerie a coincidence it was that the Netflix movie perfectly predicted what happened in that place to those people.
This story is one of the weirdest coincidences ever.
Eerily similar.
Uncanny similar.
Weird, uncanny, eerie. I love the word eerie.
This is ever.
Eerily similar.
Uncanny similarities.
At times identical to the Ohio train derailment timeline.
People living in eastern Ohio evacuated their homes last week following a train derailment and chemical spill that sent toxic chemicals into the air. The crazy thing is, they did the same thing for a fictional disaster film a year ago. The movie is called White Noise. It came out on Netflix in November. It stars Adam Driver. The premise of the movie is this: a freight train derails and explodes, and families have to flee the toxic fallout. The film was shot all over Ohio. It features extras in vacation scenes, including a family from New Palestine. Then, last week's train derailment in real life and fire happened less than a mile from their home.
They interviewed a lot of the actors who were extras in the movie who described how eerie it was that they had to live out the movie in real life.
They had to leave for real.
Now, this goes deep, but this is one clip. This is put together by World Stage, and I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the tweet so you can follow him on Twitter. These compilations are fantastic because what we're showing here is that these aren't eerie coincidences. These aren't anomalies. These aren't inserted by higher powers or ghosts or demiurges or AI. No, this is the deliberate synchronization of messaging, of propaganda messaging that connects the entertainment world with the news media. And they're doing this because the news isn't only news. The media is a liar, but the news serves the purpose of fabricating historic events because they write our history in advance. And the build up towards these events is what we call predictive programming. And it's really just foreshadowing. It's repetitive propaganda, and it's advertising. And you have to be receptive to an idea before, if you're going to accept it just at face value, you have to already be receptive. They have to prime you. And that's the purpose of the repetition and advertising. And then, of course, the names and the situations go even deeper. The actor in that movie is the same actor who is the face of Megalopolis, which is hugely significant. And then, of course, the Palestine thing. But again, this is the media's response. It's an eerie coincidence. And how many eerie coincidences can you have before you can call this intentional and deliberate manipulation? And I released this ebook because I really want to get past the truth or misconception that these coincidences can only be the result of higher powers. I dispute the idea that Hollywood is divinely inspired. And the problem with having a wrong answer like that is it's a intellectual dead end, it's a cul-de-sac, but it actually conceals the truth. And the truth is the biggest conspiracy of all, the only real conspiracy. I mean, all the other conspiracy theories out there are myths and hyperstitions and alternative narratives that just contradict the mainstream. But if you want to find a real conspiracy, just point out the fact that our entire media infrastructure is monolithic and integrated, and that the power elite have put us into a fictional universe, a mental map of the world that they control and dictate. And by doing so, they have taken complete control over time itself. I mean, it's a monumental conspiracy. It's the new monotheism. It's a world religion. But the evidence is right there in front of your face. So I had this long conversation back and forth with Crypto K about this today. And his answer is that we're looking at the study of paranormal media. We had a long conversation with him and Synchro Morpheus, and it's a debate that's timely. It's time to start debating this. If you're going to claim something as extraordinary as higher powers working through Hollywood directors to foreshadow fake news events, there's a lot of evidence that you'd have to supply to support that. And we have something else as far as an explanation. We have a model that actually makes a lot more sense. Tim and Vic says, I'm certain all these scripts acted out in Hollywood mimic what's happening in the sky according to astrology. There is a great deal of that. And it's more or less tied into the solar deity and the myths surrounding it. I can point to many examples of the sun god personification and how this is put into our media consistently. It's put into the movies. Very common. And the idea that our movies have this as a template, not inconsistent. I think that the mystery schools and their mythology is one of the sources for the script, for the stories, for the big stories. And the thing about this astrotheological story is it's about a cycle, a never-ending cycle. Like there's not going to be an end of the world. Right now, the New World Order is the space religion of Nasatology, scientism. And it's obviously templated off of what came before. We're in just as much of a dark age. Moscow threatens to attack Poland. Kremlin warns it can strike U.S. bases using advanced weapons as NATO scrambles jets and Putin releases ICBM in Ukraine for the first time after Storm Shadow strike. Now, I'm not worried about that at all, but it's all built up. It's a plot twist. We're waiting for the fallout. I'm going to live in a Christopher Nolan film for a little bit. Okay, so we're at this 692 views, not too bad. Okay, so we're looking at this poll. What is more likely the entity responsible for predictive programming? God, aliens, higher powers, coincidence, or the PSYOPs department? Now, out of 58 votes, so far 0% think it's all coincidence. 24% think that God, aliens, and higher powers are aligning Netflix with fake news. 75% attribute this to the PSYOPs department. So I'm glad to see that 75% looking at this proposition are in agreement with me that it is a PSYOP that we're looking at and not some kind of cosmic phenomenon manifesting through media, which again makes zero sense. American Father says ICBMs have a launch on warning, which if it was real, other ICBMs would have been launched while it was still in the air. Well, the good news is nukes are fake. What's funny is the people who believe in nukes get mad when you tell them that. It's like, I'm letting you know that nobody's going to push a button and vaporize you and your family. And they're like, how dare you contradict the mainstream media? It's like blasphemy. Heresy. Sorry, I don't kneel, I don't genuflect, I don't duck and cover before your God construct. It doesn't scare me. Here's the rear seat of JFK's limousine. I'm wondering if this is Heinz 57 from the same bottle that they used for their home movie shot 2 months prior. I think Jim Henson may have been involved. I've seen some compelling evidence that what you saw was a Muppet, and Jackie was pulling a wire that triggered the squib, the explosive charge that caused the head to explode. And then when you see her crawling on the back of the car, she's getting the piece. On this solemn day, November 22nd, 2024, we mark the 61st anniversary of the loss of JFK. Or he's still alive and he's wearing a Trump suit. That's the word on Q Street. Isn't today the beginning of Sagittarius? I was talking to Micah Dank about this. He wrote some books on astrotheology, and he said the significance of November 22nd being the assassination date may have tied into Sagittarius the Archer, Lee Harvey Oswald, the long distance, the shooting death of the president, and it refers to the death of the sun god, the spear in Christ's side, or the Scorpio, the scorpion stinging the sun. These are all different ways of describing the change from the seasons of the, the warmth into the death of winter. And so the Sagittarian spear, Oswald's rounds, and then, of course, again, the spear in the side of Christ. These are all parts of this, the assassination where it ties into the Sun King, the death and sacrifice of the Sun King, which is the theme in King Killed 33. Okay, let's see here. Flapjack says 6-seater with flip-up stools on the floor, checker cabs to the same jump seats. Virtual Reality Witness says people should be excited and relieved to hear that nukes are fake, but no, they resent you for telling them this. Yeah, it's like if you believe it, that's cool. Let me see you duck and cover. Like show them an image of a nuke, a mushroom cloud, and see if they're actually triggered by it. Like, does this actually scare you? Because it looks to me like they're blowing up Barbie houses. And I say this as someone who went through 6 months of training. One station unit training, 6 months, one base, and we were training on fallout, decontamination, detecting, predicting where the fallout would be. EMP. EMP was a huge part of it as well. And that's a huge theme in our predictive programming. Leave the world behind. Again, it's all about the EMP. And let me bring something up. And like I'm saying, I'm a skeptic, but I was a believer in nukes at one point. But one thing I want to bring up about leave the world behind is before it even came out, we said it's going to have predictive programming for what follows. And it has. In fact, you could find examples where even in the news media, they're saying people are comparing what just happened to leave the world behind. Like people have noticed that and they comment on it consistently, just like they did with the Netflix white noise in East Palestine, Ohio. And the reason we're able to predict it is because we know what we're looking at. These aren't anomalies. It's structural. It's systemic. It's intrinsic to what media is. This alignment, the entrainment. And it's really, I think, the symbol of the eclipse. 2001 Space Odyssey. It's the sun and the moon. It's the movie world, the dream world, and the real world being fused. Okay, let's move on. We've been covering some weird ground here. Alice in Wonderland syndrome, misinformation effect, Dr. Sleep. And Dr. Sleep, this is Stephen King. It's all about adrenochrome. It's these creepy roving groups of witches or whatever, wizards, whatever they are, kidnapping children and taking their souls through torture and trapping them in these thermoses, which they feed on later. It says here, the True Knot, a cult of psychic vampires led by Rose the Hat. They feed on steam, the psychic essence released by torturing and killing people who have the shining. So the people who have the shining, psychic abilities, maybe super empaths, they're targeted because they have something these things can feed off of. But again, the connection here that I brought it up is simply the book has a character. The character predicts 9/11, and this is consistent with Shining having predictions for 9/11. And it's a dead giveaway that Stephen King is a metascriptor. Flapjack says, final card is UFOs. I'm not convinced that they're going to bring UFOs in. I think it's always been a metaphor for the dissolution of national borders and the ultimate resolution of all of their dialectics. You know, black and white makes gray. Aliens are grays. And I think it represents the ultimate synthesis of their mind games writ large. So, in other words, the alien invaders represent the agenda to move us into a one world government. And if you look at all the alien movies, they always show up because nukes. They always show up because we're about to blow ourselves up, or they're here to destroy us. But in either case, the presence of aliens means now mankind is one. Just like Reagan said. Reagan's like, I wish that we would be invaded by aliens so that we could all join together as one. Well, I think it's all metaphorical. Like, for example, 9/11, aliens invaded. And what happened? We united. And you have people on Fox often, I hear them saying, I kind of miss those days after 9/11 when we were all one. Like, they actually like that. But we're either going to be united by fighting against the aliens or by embracing the aliens. And I think ultimately it makes sense because I've noticed how the right wing has been consistently promoting ideas of xenophobia and alienophobia. I mean, Tucker Carlson claims that he was attacked by an alien in his bed and it scratched him and left marks and scars on his back. Now, of course, he said it was a demon, but then previously he had said that aliens are demons. So it's safe to say Tucker Carlson was attacked by an alien. And his worthless dogs didn't protect him. Now, he was sleeping with 4 dogs. The alien attacks him. He's still bleeding. He has scars, but he won't show it. And his dogs didn't do anything. Now, it's weird that he didn't suspect that maybe the dogs had something to do with it. Just shows you how credulous his listeners are. Tucker attacked by demon, literally. Yep, Tucker Carlson attacked by a demon. It left him bleeding in bed. Tucker shares chilling story of demon attack. Tucker Carlson's mental illness says he was attacked by a demon while sleeping. Well, it was an alien. So Tucker says aliens are demons. And not only that, but he says that the demons made a deal with the government, with the Democrats. So it says here, Tucker knows they're not aliens. Aliens are actually demons. He tells this to Joe Rogan.
I believe they are.
What makes you draw that conclusion that they're spiritual?
What's the obvious? It goes outside of what we understand about physics. And there's video of these things coming out of the sky into the water and also emerging from the water.
Right. What if people knew about these? Everybody knew about these. They'd be freaked out. And I often think that.
Yeah, anyway, aliens are demons. He was attacked by a demon, therefore attacked by an alien. All right, let's see. My third eye says, some years back, there were 60 or 80 nuke test vids that were declassified. All of them were just scary propaganda vids, spooky music, ominous narrator voices made to scare the troops. Yes. If you could be made to fear something, you're now a carrier for this, for a mind virus, essentially. A panic, a little, like a mind virus that sets off a panic. And everybody who is carrying these fear viruses is doing the work of maintaining the mind war. Like, I think truthers aren't actually advancing truth, but their red pills are toxic. And it keeps them in a state of fear, and that's how they're controlled. They're cowed. They're scared. They're mind controlled. And this is everybody. It's not just truthers, but just pointing it out because truthers have been misled into this idea that they have somehow seen through the matrix when they've really just adopted a lot of paranoid delusions designed to cripple them. It's cognitive sabotage. because they've been truthering for 10 or 20 years and haven't figured out the immensity of the fakery and how it is the primary issue to confront here. It's been hiding in our faces. The only real conspiracy that we should be unmasking and examining and exposing is this total control, monolithic control over media. To me, that's the main target. And yet you have people chasing second shooters, the scapegoat they think that runs the world, or the corporations that make the medicine that they're not even going to take. You have all these distractions, but these are all fake conspiracies. Lucid Stream says, I hope I'm still around when nukes, space junk, aliens, and demons start falling from the sky. You know, I'm convinced that if I were to stage space junk falling through the ceiling and breaking something, the news media would be defenseless against me. They would not be able to say, oh, that's not true. Because you have to believe everything. If you believe in the whole space thing, you don't have a basis for calling anything fake. They don't have any standards. Their critical thinking shuts off. So if I was to fake space junk, I think I could get away with it. I think it could go viral. I could crisis act. And I've thought about doing this for some time, and I know I could pull it off. I'm not unethical. I'm not searching for clicks, but I might do it as like a social experiment. Like for your benefit. Like I didn't go to the MAGA rally to convince anybody there that Trump faked his AR-15 ear piercing. I went there to expose or reveal and point out for all of you that there's this invisible wall and that they are in a box and they are unreachable from the off-world stage perspective. And similarly, I would like to demonstrate for all of you how gullible the media is and how vulnerable it is to people who know how it works. Because the people at the level of reporting local stories are likely not in on the PSYOP entertainment complex. They're way at the bottom of the pyramid. Okay, continuing. All right, we already talked about Pokemon Go yesterday. Jay Leno falling down the hill. Nobody on Twitter agrees with me that Donald Trump is worse than Jussie Smollett. Like, how can you say that what Trump did was acceptable and what Jussie did was somehow not? Like, Jussie Smollett faked a lynching, faked a hate crime, and he paid for it. And Trump faked an assassination attempt, faked martyrdom. I think it's worse, but he's going to get away with it. And these are government-sanctioned, state-sanctioned propaganda operations that are scripted in advance. This is beyond partisan politics. This is not Trump tricking the Democrats, sacrificing a couple of his fans, his fanatics. No, the whole thing is a contrivance, and both sides at the very top sign off on it. These PSYOPs are all capstone level events. They're signed off on at the very top. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Prophet says Biden is a body double. I mean, this is just... I'm telling you. At one point, this might have been entertaining. This is like old QAnon lore. But I'm just playing this one because this is a guy who calls himself a prophet. His name is Hank Kuhneman. Now, the problem with these prophets is they don't know that any of the events in the world are fake. Like, they operate within the closed informational system of the world stage with all of its presuppositions and its fake history. And this is why it matters. The world stage is the internalized model. It doesn't always match what's out there. The reason it's problematic is that our shared history, our shared frame of reference, which is where we're all standing when we make our claims, is augmented by decades of fake events, fake history. And of course, every day that goes by with more and more fake events just increases the amount of fakery that forms our collective frame of reference. So let me go ahead and play this prophet.
I've seen way too much that I haven't talked about, but I'm telling you, that day is about to come where some of the things that you thought Like that's really Biden? Okay. All right, come on. You know, there's a lot of things that's going to come out. I know I just shocked you. But, you know, God said from the very start, and that's on record, and I got attacked by the secular media. It was the next day after the 2020 election when the devil appeared to me in that vision. And it was at 445, and God said there'll be 4 more years for 45. How many remember that? Yep. And the devil appeared and he was talking about all things he was going to do. And I saw this face of this Biden guy change 2 to 3 times. How remember that?
So the devil revealed to this prophet that Joe Biden is going to be replaced, and multiple people have been wearing that costume. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. Like, everything is so subjective. It's a nightmare. It's the sea of irrelevance. And this kind of stuff gets rewarded. You know, people want to believe so bad. And that's why I've been such a stickler for objectivism in this matter. This is why I've been pointing my sights at Mandela effects and synchromysticism. I think it's time to demystify and elevate our standards of evidence and to insist on, I think, honesty and truth as our standard, not what we want to believe, but what we can know, even if that means that we're going to be left in a bit of agnosticism with regard to things that we don't have enough information for. And it really just means you have to be comfortable saying, I don't know. But it's not just, I don't know, and I'm resigning. It's, I don't know, I need more information. And you don't have enough information to know it. You can only say you believe it. And there's this fundamental distinction between believers and knowers that I think is important to hold on to. The world stage is designed for believers. It's designed for people getting their information filtered down, handed to them, that they just take unquestioningly. Whereas the off-world stage perspective is for skeptics who prefer to know what we can know and then be informed about that which we don't know, so we know why we don't believe it. Lucid Stream says, rise of the Christian Reich. That's why they made the satanic stuff so obvious, to swing the pendulum hard to the other side. The God of this construct constantly plays both sides and demands worship. Yeah, very good call. They deliberately reintroduced a satanic panic, starting with Pizzagate. Deliberate, and it's continual, and it's filled up with all kinds of superstition, witch hunts. They talk about even recently, I believe it was General Flynn was talking about witches being imported from Haiti. I mean, they're going back to the Dark Ages. They're taking this idealized past too far. And it's a pushback against the utopian future, which they are rejecting. Okay, I want to say thanks everyone for joining tonight. We're going to be live tomorrow for Infinite Plane Saturn Day. And that's when we'll be taking calls on anything we talked about in the past week. We'll make some plans for the weekend of the 30th, which will be the third of the Auto Hoax cons. And I'm trying to do the Infinite Plane Saturn Day much earlier. So you can look forward to that. Just sign up for the newsletter and I'll send out notifications before we go live. So thanks again for the comments, and we'll continue this conversation then.